All right, here we go. We're recording.
Here we are.
Here we are. So I wanted to take some time out and I want to do a presentation. And if you're watching, this is an understanding of fear and a pathway to peace. And what I mean by that is that when you understand something newly, it creates an awareness level that wasn't there before. And I've really transformed a lot of the fears in my life by just stepping into a lot of different fears. And some of the information I'm going to share tonight, and I'm going to have a fun little discussion and chat with my friend Angela. And
Hi.
she's just going to be heard. She's going to ask some questions, like if you're watching, and we're just going to have a fun conversation about fear. And so sit back, grab a cocktail, have a drink, listen to your car, whatever you want to do. But we're going to present, or I'm going to present a presentation on understanding fear and how becoming aware of how it works and what's going on underneath can actually help create more peace in your life. So welcome, Angela.
Yay, thank you. Hooray, peace. Hooray, conquering fear. Yay.
So Angela's going to ask questions and I'm just going to kind of jump into it and start sharing my screen. And let's see here. All right. Can you see that all right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to move my little
Just have
thing
to
down.
decide where your face is going to be. That's all.
What did you say?
I just have to decide where your face is going to be. So I'm addressing like the side of the computer because your face is over there.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Oh, just a minute. Move things around here. All right. All right. Can you see the bottom of that?
Nope.
There we go. Okay,
That
cool.
one.
So let's just jump into it. So what is fear, right? So the definition of fear is it's an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by an anticipation or awareness of danger, right? And I'm going to get into what that is further, but that's the basic definition. It's that feeling we have that when something shows up and we know we should probably take a pause or maybe something bad might happen or a perceived bad thing might happen. Angela, what's your definition of fear? What do you think it is for you?
Ooh, I'm glad you asked because I was about to chime in that my 10 years of Buddhist study at one period of my spiritual journey, Buddhism would call fear ill will towards the future.
I like that. I like that. Yeah.
Or an unknown ill will towards an unknown future that, and this is me adding it now, like an ill will towards an unknown future that you assume is going to be negative.
Yeah, I think that's right. And there's going to be a lot of different angles and stories that come up through this, right?
Yes.
So that's the definition of fear. And
Mm-hmm.
so let's get into the purpose of fear, right? And I'm just going to read this off. The purpose of fear is to get us to act or take no action in response to perceived real threat of some kind or perceived threat, right? It can keep us safe. It can hold us back. It can motivate us, and it can also, immobilize us and have us lock up and not take any action. And this, like, I just want to share my story a little bit. I'm a career coach and I help people, find their purpose so they can move and transition into jobs that they really want to, or find something that they really care about, maybe open up a new business or start a business, or just do something in their life that they've been wanting to do, but have fears really held them back. And there's a whole lot of reasons for everybody, right? Everybody's a little different. And my story was that I was stuck in a job. Actually wasn't stuck. I was stuck in fear. But I made great money, but I really didn't want to be stuck behind the computer all day. And I really learned through my own journey that, I was an engineer at the time, but what I've come to discover was not only was I not happy, but I wasn't really being with people. And I'm a people person. And so I didn't realize it. I made a turn for money early in my career, and that took me down an analytical route. And for a people person that fills their heart, being behind the computer and being an engineer is really, it just kills the soul. But I was stuck in this fear of I can't make a move because I'm making really good money. I was actually living where you are now in Austin, Texas, when all this happened. And I was just really unsure, not confident. And I actually had a coach call me out, and she goes, I can tell you're using your big paycheck to impress people.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a very confident person. And that started me in my journey. And that's was my very beginning of me becoming a coach and me starting my own business. And it's been several years since then, and I've learned a lot about myself, had a lot of struggles, but I've also been able to help a lot of people too understand what's going on for them, and that's helped them create breakthroughs in their life about things they care about. And that's really where some of this passion comes from, is because when someone gets to do something or create a new relationship or mend a relationship, or go for that job or do something different that they've always wanted to, and then they share that with you, and there's no other better feeling. It's like they got to beat themselves. And,
Right on.
So what about, what do you think or the purpose for fear for you is?
For me, well, I mean, when I think about the purpose of fear, I think about evolution and how, I mean, I know that maybe jumping the gun, but how we used to run away from scary things and have to do that all the time. And fear is has a useful purpose if we're actually trying to get away from danger. That's, I would say, the purpose of it. It pumps your adrenaline. If you need to get out of a situation, I mean, there still are scary situations. I'm not saying like all the scary situations are actually over, but it was just more common among our species that we needed to run in order to survive. But if there is a scary situation, fear can functionally, send off the alarm bells and say, whoa, get out of here. Whoa. Or like, hey, you could I don't know, this is kind of weird, fight or flight, like assessing whether you could fend off someone or if you just need to run, So I think that the most functional way that fear can have a purpose is that. But I mean, fear has shown up everywhere. I mean, fear is definitely the reason why I haven't done certain things, or why I avoid an email that I think is going to be a little nerve-wracking because one of my students' moms writes about oh, let's discuss this invoice, and I'm like, oh my God, that doesn't sound like a fun time.
That's not cool.
Say what?
That's not cool. I don't want to talk about that stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, the funny thing is that often the fear that comes up in my mind will make it into a way worse problem than actually it is. Because often all I have to do is just take a step and go, okay, just, you gotta face it. You gotta go look at that email. And then, oh, it's not that bad. They just wanted to make sure that they had it right.
what does your brain go in a scenario like that? What's the big disaster that's, if you say something to her, or she's gonna come and eat you or kill you, or what's your brain do?
Ooh, yeah, it's don't want to deal with angry mom. It's I don't want unpleasant. I don't want to possibly explain myself a bunch of times as to why I did this, or I don't want a whole bunch of homework. I don't want, it's mostly a fear of anger. It's
she might get angry or something.
Yeah, it's mostly a fear of someone else being mad at me, and me being in trouble.
Someone got in trouble as a little kid, didn't they?
Say what?
Said someone probably got in trouble as a little kid, huh?
No, actually, my fear of getting in trouble kept me out of trouble.
Okay, gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
I was a little
Um,
too good.
okay,
Some
gotcha.
might say. I don't know.
Um, yeah, so I mean, for everybody, there is that purpose there. And I'm gonna jump back in here or move to the next section here. Um, but I mean, that's just an example from you of like, it holds you back, you know?
Yeah.
Like if you didn't have that, you'd probably just respond in a nice way or something, and just be like, hey, what's going on? I'm not sure what's happening. Or, just like trying to get to the root of the issue on their side, right? But yeah, I've definitely been in those situations too, where you don't want to respond, and then you find out on the other end that nothing you thought was exactly what they were probably thinking, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it just
Um,
like unnecessary angst and
yeah,
falling
exactly.
apart and like prolonged this thing that needed to get done and like basically wasted time being afraid.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, here's what I want people to know. A lot of people think they're wrong or bad for having that. What's wrong with me? Why can't I just respond? What's wrong with me? Why can't I just pick up the phone and call them? What's wrong
Right.
with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you.
Right.
You just have a normal condition called being human.
Right.
And when you understand fear, you can then become present to, oh, maybe fear's running the show. Oh, if you know that, then you can start taking actions of like, maybe I should meditate, maybe I should do some breathing exercises, maybe I should do some prayer work or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're going to get into that in a little bit.
Right.
But I want to jump into how does fear work? And, this is, I cut my brain open and this is what it looks like. So it's pretty,
Very
it's
simplified.
it's very simplified, very simple guy. There's no blood or anything like that. The doctors were in amazement. They're like, "Wow, you look like a pitcher," you know. um, so how does fear work? Like, so I'm going to describe the general process. So let's imagine, Angela, you are sitting at home and someone starts banging on your window, right?
Uh-oh.
But you don't know someone's banging on your window. All you hear is like the window, you know? And so your brain is going to start receiving messages from your ears and your eyes. Something's happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something's going on. And that's going to send, your senses are going to send messages to your your prefrontal cortex. I'm not a doctor. And then your hippocampus, your amygdala, that's the lizard part of your brain. Um, Sorry, I just had a thought of a little
Like
lizard.
back here, like
Yeah, that's if you ever hear that little tingly, that's the lizard licking the back of your head. That's what that is.
okay.
That's technical.
Good
But
to know.
anyways, it goes to the amygdala and then the hypothalamus, and basically the process is that it goes and can trigger the fight or flight response.
Or
Um,
freeze.
what'd you say?
Or freeze.
Or freeze. Yes, exactly. Um, and so that's the process inside of it. And what really might be happening is it could be, a bird on the other side that flew into your window, and
Mm.
you're about ready to jump and call 911, or get ready to grab your gun and shoot through
One
the
of those.
window and save your life, right?
Right. Well, or like for me, it's funny. I'm just like personalizing this. I
Yeah.
live on the third floor, and I have a terrace along one of my windows to the outside. And so hearing someone knock on a window from this part of the house would be highly concerning to me because that means someone decided to walk up to get on my little terrace thing. It's like open to the parking lot or whatever, and knock on my window. And that would like not be okay.
That would create a whole lot of stories going on in your head.
Oh, yeah.
Who is
Totally.
this? What is going on? Grab my gun, call 911, whatever, right? Um,
Something. Yeah.
yeah. And you know, like at that point, our brain starts to go into uh, uh, like creating a lot of stories to prepare us, and it's absolutely normal, and it's what's supposed to happen, right? But it can be paralyzing, especially if it's in those circumstances where nothing really is happening,
Right.
right? It could just be the wind that blew up and knocked something off, right?
True.
Yep. And the point of the this whole thing is so people understand this. But I do also want people to know there's no like fix to this. It's just like once you understand it, then you can be aware and calm yourself, to prepare, ready. And I had a moment in my life. This is when I bought my first house, and it was the day I was moving in, and I got carjacked when I was literally moving my stuff into the
What?
yeah. So I mean, I had a gun to my face, and he was like, get out of the car. Like I was literally in front of my house, like ready to move my first boxes in.
Holy
Uh,
crap. What?
and so I was definitely scared, you know, and I was able to presence myself and at least think things through. And what ended up happening was um, I got out of the car. He wanted me to get back in the car, and I said no. But right before that moment, I had my dog with me, and my dog was a boxer, but she kind of, she had pointy ears, and she could be perceived as looking aggressive, but only with her tongue. She was just a licker.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, "Is she gonna bite me?" And I was like, "I don't know. She might." And so I just kind of made that up. Uh,
Ha!
but it got her out of the car, and I was able to presence myself. And it's funny what happens, like when I was definitely in fight or flight. Like I was ready to run, and I was able to be conscious enough that I diverted his attention, and I said, "Hey, someone's watching from the window." And he looked over there, and as soon as he looked, I bolted, and I ran right around the corner, like I was right around the corner, and I ran right into the nursing home that was right next door, and called 911 and stuff like that. Uh, and so nothing ended up happening. He got my wallet. He tried to steal the car, but he couldn't figure out how to park it or drive it. And but so that can be like a post-traumatic stress thing, that
Yeah,
happens.
absolutely.
And I actually end up going through therapy for a few weeks and using a procedure called EMDR, uh, rapid eye movement. Eye movement. I forget what it's the exact name of it,
I
but
forget.
it can help people in those circumstances if they do have a traumatic fear, where it helps retrain the brain around that situation. I don't know the science of it,
Mm.
but it did really impact me and help reduce my stress around moving into a new place and not, getting freaked out. And it was really a great process to go through. So if anyone's ever been through something like that, and you're still dealing with that post-traumatic stress, there are procedures out there that can help you with this. That's not at the point of this presentation to teach you that, but just letting people know that, it's called EMDR. So
Other things too.
okay.
There's a bunch of other things too.
Yeah.
Therapy. Therapy is good.
Talking. Actually, that's a great point, because if you can be conscious enough to just share, "Oh my God, I'm scared," that gets a lot of energy out, and that just brings it to your conscious level. And then you can be like, "Oh, I'm scared. Oh, what am I scared about?" And then your brain will do its own little process to try to figure things out. And it's really cool. So yeah, so that's basically, the general process. And then if it's nothing that's going on, your brain will then go, "Oh, okay, it was just wind," and you don't have to do that. And then the hormones that get dumped and stuff like that. So let me move on to the next slide here. So fear versus danger. So we are exiting the toilet paper pandemic.
Mm,
So
exiting though, maybe.
I don't know.
We're in the midst of it.
We're on the hopefully tail end, right? um, what did you say?
I said, hopefully.
Hopefully. Um, so I had an impactful moment when one of my coaches pointed out and said, "Brad, you know the difference between fear and danger." And my smart ass was probably like, "Yeah, I know," but I really wasn't. I really wasn't present to like the difference. And so fear is the story that our brains create, but it feels real. It feels like something's going to happen. It immobilizes or it makes us do things that we may not want to, or pushes us in a direction that we're not sure of, or it pushes us in a direction of a safety, and when we really want to go towards something that is outside of our comfort zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But danger is that, like, okay, something's likely, very likely to cause harm or injury right now, immediately, and you need to get out, right? So when people are trying to understand fear and how it impacts them, I want them to understand that there's a difference between fear and danger.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a presentation for you to think, oh, it's a dangerous situation. I could probably just not, like, I could control it. No, you should be afraid if the house is burning down. Get out, But if you're on, in the middle of a meadow and you're thinking about a burning house and you're really scared, that's
Mm-hmm.
fear, right?
Yeah.
So um, it's just one
Or
of
like
the,
worrying if you're going to get fired or something, and you don't know.
yeah, yeah, you're worrying about, what may happen, right? Which
Mhm.
brings us, to what is a story, right?
Yep.
Um, so whenever we're in fear, well, let me start off with this is that the way our brains work is our brains are wired to figure things out. What's missing in this scenario? I'm sure if you've ever looked at a phrase or a word and some letters are missing or some words are missing, and your brain will fill in the blanks even though they're not there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just automatically does it, and you're like, oh, that the word "the" without the "e," you just think, oh, that's the,
Mm-hmm.
or the brown, what's the phrase with the brown, the fox that jumps over the whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
That
like the
phrase.
cow that something in the moon and.
Yeah, but if you were to see it written out and if it had a couple words missing, your brain would be like boom, 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 and it would fill it in, right? Well, that's what our brains do at the same time whenever there's any kind of fear or danger. It wants to create the scenario, wants to fill in the gap, like what's missing so I can be prepared and survive, right? Um, but it usually does the most wild, absolutely crazy story and can scare the crap out of you, you
Yeah.
know? And so my goofy self, I was getting ready one morning and I forget where I was at. But I forgot my belt.
Oh no.
I had my pants on, I had my shirt, and I was doing some kind of presentation or going somewhere, maybe going to like a landmark event or something, I forget. And you just got to kind of dress up, a little nicer. But I forgot my belt, right? And my brain went straight towards, what if someone pantses me?
Oh.
Like, this is what my brain does. It goes to the most absurd, crazy things, right? And then I go into, oh my God, I gotta find my belt. And then I caught myself. I'm an effing adult. I have not been pants since forever, like since I was a little kid.
You
But
have
that's what
graduated
my brain.
elementary school.
What did you say?
You have graduated elementary school.
Yeah, exactly. My brain still came up with the most ridiculous story, and it had me in fear for a moment. And I'm
Mm.
like, that's stupid. Thanks, brain.
Well, I mean, or just like, wow, that went far.
Yeah, exactly. Most ridiculous, and I don't know everybody else's, but I'm pretty sure they may not have to go pantsing stories, but it's when a dog runs out, we automatically think it might get hit by a car, and
Yeah.
that's a possibility, right?
Mhm.
But if you've got a fence in the yard and it's totally secure, you're probably cool, you know.
Mhm.
So I like this quote, fear is the imagination gone wild in the wrong direction, right?
Yeah.
And it just happens, you know, it's just what the brain does. And if you don't know this, you're likely to beat yourself up. What's wrong with me?
Right.
Why am I thinking I'm going to get pantsed?
Right.
I'm a 40-year-old man. Like, who's pantsing you nowadays?
Right. I
I
mean,
may argue that my life might be a little more exciting if people are pantsing me every once in a
but
while.
also like, who are your coworkers? If like people are pantsing you, like they need to go graduate from elementary school. Like,
I
you
may
know,
I may actually want to find some coworkers like this. This would probably be cool.
you do you, man. You do you.
Needs more excitement, right? So, okay, let me get into the next slide here. All right, so then I want to share like the cycle of fear. So you have an event, right? Something happens, an action, a knock on the window, you forget your belt, and then you have a thought. And this is where it all starts. You have a thought, and then that story gets created or it gets recalled from our past. And it's like, oh my God, last time I forgot my belt, someone pantsed me 30 years ago. I can't forget my belt ever again. Good Lord, if anybody ever sees my underwear, you know,
So
the
me.
world, the world will end, right? Um, and then from there, like emotions happen, and then we react automatically, or we can choose to respond if
Hmm.
we've been practicing, being conscious about what's going on. And
Hmm.
then from there, we can choose to take another action, or maybe another event has already happened at that point. And
Right.
the cycle just happens, and it can be like a downward spiral, and it can really lock you in. Oh my God, the boss closed his door. We're all getting fired.
Right. Yeah.
In actuality, he might have just had a fight with his wife, and
Right.
he just needs some time to process something.
Right.
You know,
Who knows?
Here's a horrible tip for anybody if you want to screw with your coworkers.
No.
As you leave on Friday, say, "Are you getting fired? Have a good weekend." I heard that joke years ago. That's great.
That's
um,
awful.
yeah, it's horrible. It's awful. But that's the basic, the cycle is, event and action. Then you have this thought. Then the story gets created. Then we can live inside of that story, sometimes for years or months or way too long.
Yeah.
Uh, and it can, if it's a really traumatic event, it can be stored in our bodies.
Right.
And
Yeah.
anything that anytime that person or that person goes through something and they have a trigger that brings up, the
Yeah.
whole thing can be recreated, right?
Hmm.
And you have the emotions, and then you can choose to react or respond, and just it can continue until you learn to be conscious to stop it.
Yeah.
And it's one of the hardest things to do in life. Period. Is really being conscious and present to stop it. You know.
And if you don't stop it, it will create an even thicker and thicker and thicker filter that you see everything else everything else through. Like it's just you start seeing everything as this fear.
Yeah.
It's
Or everything that looks like it.
yeah.
We
Yeah.
could talk about racism, inside of this.
Yeah.
One person gets, afflicted by a person of color or vice versa.
Right.
And then everybody inside of that race is now the bad person, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
or, men and women, something, a woman gets
Hmm.
accosted or raped or something. And then
Or
all men are bad now.
yeah.
Or
Or
they're,
even less than that. And yeah,
yeah,
I've definitely heard plenty of women say, "Deafened men,"
yeah,
like, well,
and,
humans.
for me too, like as a little kid, I got rejected by some girls when I was like 6, and that has really had a rejection story
Hmm.
out of my mind.
Yeah.
Really helped me back in a lot of circumstances. Oh, I can't go talk to that girl. I'll get rejected.
Say that again.
I can't go talk to that girl. I'll get
Oh yeah.
rejected, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and I know a lot of guys have had that similar story, you
Hmm.
know, of like something happens at a young childhood age, and then boom, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's
We
get
think it's going to keep happening the same way.
until you tackle it, you know.
Yeah,
So yeah, what you resist persists.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right, get to the next slide here. So this is a quote: "Fear does not stop death; it stops life."
Boom!
Chakalaka. Worrying does not take away troubles. Tomorrow's troubles, it takes away today's peace. I saw this when I was doing research for this, and it just really hit me of like, fear does not stop death. It really just stops life.
Yeah,
And we all only have so much time here. And one of my, I think, impactful moments is understanding that. And that's brought a lot of peace to my life. Like throughout this whole like COVID situation,
hmm
I accept death, you know, and not in a morbid way or like in a, a weird way, but like as a part of the process. Like
yeah,
there's a beginning, middle, and end, right? And I think a lot of people really resist this end part, and the more you resist it, it's going to have control over you.
yeah,
But as soon as you accept it, you know, then it really opens up a pathway to be um, more peace. And
yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah.
So,
And to piggyback on that COVID thing, like I think it's possible to be careful and choose your actions, be logical about it, but not be dominated by a fear mind response.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, there are like, that's a conscious choice, and it's also there's a lot of fear that gets generated, with all the COVID stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
there also is a real danger too, right?
Ah,
That's
yeah,
I think that's what you're sharing right there.
yeah.
Um, so, which is perfect segue into the conscious unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have our conscious minds, and then we have our unconscious minds. And our unconscious, subconscious it's just running the show. It's automatic, and it's things that you're not aware of, right? It's things that are going on at a subconscious level that are just happening. You see this, and your mind responds. Um, but on the conscious level, it's things that you are aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And when speaking about fear, and you don't know what's going on, that means it's on the unconscious level.
Right.
And if you have a goal, or if you have something that you want to get past, you have to bring that from the unconscious to the conscious. And that's the first level. And then you can look at it, kind of like shining a light on the darkness. And then you can look at it from different angles and be like, okay, let me look at this. And okay, that's not a monster under my bed. That is just a mouse. We should probably get some mouse traps, even though I don't believe in mouse traps.
Say that again.
I said, even though I'm not a big mouse trap guy.
Yes. I mean, the ones where they like are in there and then you can go take them out to a field somewhere.
Yes. Yeah.
Those are
So here's a fun little goose story for me of bringing conscious, unconscious. And so this is my embarrassing how dumb I was when I was younger.
Aren't we all?
Some friends and we would go rollerblading in some corporate parks near our house. And at this one corporate area, there is, I have those islands in the parking lots, and they can have bushes in them and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in this particular one, there was a goose, and it was always sitting there,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't know what was going on. We were not conscious of what was happening, with this goose, but we were really curious. Like, why isn't this goose moving? And we'd, rollerblade day by day by it, and we just hiss at us,
Oh my.
why isn't this thing moving? Like, what's going on here? So one day we got real curious, and we were like, see if we can like make this move or figure it out, right? And we were like chucking rocks towards it, not at it. We weren't trying to hit it.
Okay, that's good.
We were just kind of like, let's kind of like see if we can get it to like move, right? So we did. Nothing happened. And so we decided to go. We're like, let's get real close. And I was the third guy, you know. And we're like, let's get like right up next to it.
You're the third guy?
I was the third guy. I usually was. And so my two buddies went by, you know, real fast, like, you know, zoom, zoom. And the goose was just really hitting at him, you know. And then I'm just a little, like, a couple legs behind. And I go by it and it goes, hey, you know, like hisses at me or whatever. And then I look over and we couldn't see because we weren't close enough any of the times. But I saw a nest.
Yep, that makes sense. Absolutely.
And then I heard flapping.
Oh, no.
And then I looked and I had Papa on my back pecking at my head. And
goodness.
In that moment, I became very conscious of what was going on underneath. You know, Mama was on the nest, and Daddy was protecting. I didn't even know Daddy was around, right? And, so I had a healthy fear of geese for a while.
I think you earned that one.
Yeah. And now I know why a goose, if it's sitting there and it's not moving, it's probably because it's sitting on its eggs, you know.
That was my guess.
Yeah, so lesson learned. So the awareness levels. So once you know, well, you have the unconscious, you have automatic responses to something. And then once you become aware of it, you know, like in the goose story, which is really ridiculous, I'm aware that, you know, a goose is sitting on its nest. Now I have an understanding. Now I can have a choice in the matter, right? I can have a choice to choose to go by it and experience that again or not experience that again, or take an action and conquer it, and then have a whole new level of experience inside of awareness, right? But inside of fear, I mean, to bring it to a different like example, like if you're afraid of public speaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know what's really going on, but you know you want to be a speaker, and so you really work hard at it, and then you find out that you're aware that you're afraid what other people will think of you.
Yeah.
So now you have the awareness of like, oh, I think everybody's afraid of me. And then when you dig into that, and someone asks you the question, well, what did you think of the speaker? Were you judging them the whole time? Were you thinking
right.
that person? And their most likely response is, no, I was just listening to their story and like, you know, maybe give them some feedback. And then when they have that new level of understanding that everybody in the audience isn't there to judge them, you know, it can create a whole new level of peace and understanding, which then gives them the choice to continue that thought or to take the action of like, oh, well, maybe I'll just get up on stage this time. And then conquer their fear inside of it. And then they can experience themselves as someone who, oh my God, I'm a speaker now.
Right on.
Cool. You know?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what would you say the difference between choice and action is?
The choice is right before the action.
Okay.
So choice is I'm standing on a cliff.
Uh-oh.
And I'm going to jump or not.
Okay.
And I have the choice too. Like you're aware that you have the choice. Or in the speaker scenario, I have a choice to get up on stage and speak.
Okay. So the choice is like the mental and action is the physical.
Yeah. The choice is like, you get to say like, I know I'm afraid to do this, but I'm going to choose to do it anyways. But when you're unconscious, you don't even have that choice because you're being run by the fear.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Makes sense? Okay. And then once you have that experience, it kind of dissolves that whole old story And then if
Mhm.
you know yourself, it's like, oh my God, I'm a speaker now. Oh my God, this is awesome. Right.
Yeah.
So, and that happened to me too. Like I did
Right
Toastmasters for a
on.
while, and I did some speaking. As part of my landmark journey, I got paid to one of my projects. I became a speaker and got paid to go out to Vegas and tell my chicken story. Pretty cool.
You.
Yeah. Um, so let's get into choice, right? So, but one of the things in understanding choice is like, it just doesn't happen automatically, right? You have to actually put some intention in behind it. And there are
Mhm.
some tools and techniques that have been helpful for me. And meditation's been very helpful. And learning how to meditate creates an awareness of understanding your thoughts,
Mhm.
what's going on there, and then you can
Yep.
discern those. I also think prayer is a very powerful way to understand and have choice. Having reflection from a coach or a counselor or maybe a good friend. um, and then anywhere where you've been stopped by fear is usually the culprit. What I mean by that is now you have a new level of awareness of understanding what fear is just by listening to this and going through this. Anybody that's watching, you can start to understand that, like, oh, now I know I'm being run by fear because I'm stuck inside something.
Mhm.
And that can get you a place of choice, right?
Yeah.
um, and before I jump into the other part, what are some things that you have learned that have given you choice inside of? I mean, because you're a singer.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Um, so I talking about like techniques, like kind of how I've become aware of myself and like to facilitate choices,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've been meditating for a really long time. And that's definitely been very helpful. It has definitely helped with a lot of insight um, that I can use to help um, direct me. Um, yeah, one of the meditation tactics that I use is called noting. And so it's particularly useful with strong emotion because strong emotion can feel overwhelming and it can just overtake you. And fear is one of those emotions, you know? So when I'm meditating, whatever is the strongest, I mean, this is just one thing I do. This is not the only way I meditate, but if I'm being plagued by some really strong emotions, I will sit down and go, okay, who's showing up first? It's like anger, anger, anger. And in my mind, I will just note whatever I'm feeling. And if I get distracted, I'll be like, oh, distraction, distraction, distraction. Oh, let's get back to this. Apparently, it's like not as big of a deal anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, fear, fear. Because of course, like the things in here like morph and like one thing goes like, oh, you're not angry anymore, but now you're afraid. Okay, now you're frustrated, and it's just like swirling around, and it's a mess in there sometimes. And so sitting down and just noting what the strongest one has really brought a lot of clarity. And usually, if I'm particularly emotional, I will do this for 30 minutes, and by the end, I will feel like I have processed a lot of it, and there's not anything like to do, but to just see it. And even just the act of seeing it helps it not be overwhelming. I mean, maybe you're still kind of overwhelmed, and maybe there are people that do this and they're still overwhelmed at the end of it. But in my experience, I always feel less overwhelmed. I always feel more clarity. I always, usually during a meditation session, if I'm not aware of what I'm angry about or what I'm fearful of, usually I'll start to get a good idea of what I am afraid of or what I need to deal with or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's been the big one.
I would also add in there journaling too.
Ooh, yes, I journal hardcore, man. Yes.
A good technique as well, because I think it um, uh, goes to the idea of like letting out that energy, you know.
Yes, absolutely.
And when you get to process some of those stories that are like, going back to my pantsing story, like
Mhm.
that's so ridiculous. I don't need to journal it because it's like it comes out for me, But whenever you get to write something out and then read it, it's a reflection back to you, and then you process it differently, and it makes you aware
Mhm.
of something, and then you can choose, differently from there.
Yeah,
Pretty cool.
absolutely.
Um, one of the questions I like to share with people is like, what is it that you're really afraid of, or what is it that I'm really afraid is going to happen this moment?
Hmm.
And that sometimes that the answer will come up right away, or it can take a minute to really process. And then when you're present to that of what that really is, um, then you can choose, right? And sometimes it's something really ridiculous, and sometimes it's a real concern or fear. um, but at least you'll know, and you can choose which way to go from
Yeah.
there, right?
I
uh,
actually have a good story about that.
yeah, what? Share.
Yeah. So when I first moved to Austin in 2005, I was dealing with probably the biggest depression that I've ever dealt with. And I started singing at a church,
Yeah.
called a church job, because I'm getting money and getting paid. And I'm a soloist at that church. And for a variety of reasons, I was dealing with depression. And if you don't know this already, how you feel affects how you sing. So
I would
I
say
was
probably.
not singing very well
Yeah.
at this time. And I was not proud of it. And there was a huge fear in the past before that of like not singing well, because it's like a part of my identity is like I'm a good singer. Like I can't not sing well, because then like that's terrible. Like that's like that can't happen. Can't happen. Well, I was singing not well. Like my identity was being shattered. And I was there was one particular day when I tried to I tried to have humor about it. I was trying, that's one of the ways that you can kind of dig out of the depression hole, is to make yourself laugh.
Yeah.
There was one day when I absolutely definitely knew that it was like the worst performance I had ever given of any song in my entire life. Um, and I went back into my little office and I thought, well, that was the worst I'd ever sung. And I suppose I should say also, other times that I'd not sung well, I was like, well, at least it wasn't the worst I'd ever sung. And this particular time I said, well, that was the worst I'd ever sung. But I didn't die.
Yeah.
Like I didn't die. I don't die from not singing well. Like, if I do my job badly, I just have a bad performance. No one dies. It's nothing bad happens. So I
I'm
was thinking, God, say what?
I said, I'm glad no one dies when you don't sing.
Right. That would be a weird universe. That would be strange. And it really, in a weird way, I mean, of course I was still depressed for a while, but like it gave me the freedom from that fear, because I realized I mean, really, I could have been afraid of dying, of not dying, of being fired, but like they liked me enough. Apparently my most terrible performance was still good enough to not get fired, which I'm very thankful for. And anyone who's ever come to that church hopefully can't remember back to that time, because it was 2005 and it's a long time ago and I sing way better now. Anyway, a little bit of covering my butt. Anyway, but it like gave me the freedom to know that nothing really, really, really bad happens. Like there can be consequences, but like I'm still here. I'm still singing. The definition of myself doesn't have to be shattered by that. I can get better. I can do various things. So, yeah.
And it's all story that you created in your mind.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I didn't have a lot of control over it at the time, but.
And I'm willing to bet if you would have interviewed some of the people in the audience, they'd be like, "Oh my God, she was amazing." Yeah.
I hope so. I really hope so. Or they might have been like, well, she was kind of quiet. I don't know. Or something. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, our minds like to create all these crazy stories.
Yeah.
All right, let me get into one of the next slides here. I think we're almost getting out. And I just want to share, like, what the process, once you do have that choice, what that looks like, because it's really cool. And when you want to when you want to go after something in your life that's been holding you back, right? Um, there's a general process of understanding. It's called the hero's journey. And you can see it in almost every movie that's ever been made.
Mm,
If you look at,
rom-com.
what'd you say?
Unless it's a rom-com.
There's usually they're going to usually step into some fear.
True, that's true.
I think of Hitch, when Will Smith, he's got to face his fears of dating, even though he's a dating coach.
Oh man, I actually haven't seen lots of movies, so
It's a good one. I like it. It's a good rom com. If you like Will Smith, yeah. But the hero's journey. So to Harry Potter, Star Wars are good examples to really understand what's going on, like to give you a framework. So the framework is that, we have a call to adventure in our life, a call to face a fear and do something that we've always wanted, but something's been holding us back. But in movies, I'm just going to explain it this way, is that there's this call to adventure. Star Wars happens, and then uh, this is like the known area, but we know, or something's going to happen, that we're going to have to go transform ourselves, or to a new level, right? And this process basically, excuse me, basically goes from, the call to adventure, um, and then there's a threshold of like, okay, I'm going to do it, and here we go, right?
leaving my
And
comfort zone.
the what?
Leaving my comfort zone.
Yeah, leaving the comfort zone. And then usually at that point, especially in the movies, there's some sort of mentor or helper that shows up. And I would argue that in life, when we really are going after something,
Hmm.
if we're present, a mentor will show up.
Hmm.
And if it doesn't, then ask for one, or go find one.
Yeah, you
Um,
can be proactive too.
yep. And then you've got your challenges and temptations of overcoming that fear, or that movie's going through that story. And then there's this big revelation of like really what you're battling, like inside of, that thing. And then you battle it, you overcome it in some form or fashion, or you have a complete failure sometimes too. But you realize you lived through the experience, just like in your, you
My
know,
singing story.
yeah, you
I was
didn't.
like, oh wow, I didn't even like really mean to like tell you my hero's journey through singing.
Yeah, and
Perfect.
that's a perfect example. Like, and then you're transformed inside of it. Then you go through this like little atonement, and then you want to start and return to back to the normal life. But you've got a big gift, and you've got a story to share with other people. You know,
Hmm.
and so for me, when I left the corporate world, I've had this huge scary thing, and then I finally left, and then I left, and I found that there's coaches and mentors and people that wanted to help along the journey. And what some of my biggest fears in death and rebirth is like, I'm not going to die. You know,
Hmm.
I used some money. I had so many great and wonderful experiences, lots of bad and horrible ones too. But I'm still here, and I've really gotten to transform from that non-confident person that didn't know how to speak up to someone who knows how to speak up for themselves now,
Sweet.
and run my own business, and help people along the way. And then that's the story that I get to bring and share, because it's really cool once you understand that you don't have to be run by something that you actually have control over, but you didn't
Hmm.
know was actually controlling you in the past.
Yeah, you have a
And
choice.
yeah, you definitely have a choice. Um, so that's the fear presentation, understanding fear to a pathway to peace. Because once you understand it and you can go through it, it I am um, probably at the most level of peace I've ever had in my life. I still have trials and tribulations, and I'm still dealing with things, and understanding, myself at new levels. But I have a deep sense of like not worrying about things, even in this COVID situation. You
Hmm.
know, it's a whole new thing for the world. But I look at nature and I'm like, the grass is still growing. Worst
Birds
comes
are
to
still
worst,
singing.
birds are still singing. Worst comes to worst, I will go grab a tent and live on the land and learn how to, figure out how to eat and shoot squirrels and stuff. Um,
Farm
I hope, yeah, farming. How, what a concept, right?
a garden.
And but just having that level of like peace doesn't have me concerned. It's like, yeah, there's things to deal with and maybe some things I don't like, um, but there's not an anxiety, where I'm losing sleep. I'm kind of looking at it like the roads are actually kind of nice to drive on right now.
They are.
You
And
know,
like being home and not like spending money on gas and like cooking a lot. And I mean, there's definitely silver linings to this
yeah,
situation. And it sucks, I know there's a lot of terrible things. It's terrible that
yeah,
people are suffering and getting this illness and not being able to work and that sort of thing. I don't want to I don't want to say anything light about any of that.
no,
But yeah, there are definitely silver linings even when bad things are happening.
yeah, I agree. Well, thank you very much for hopping on here with me. I appreciate having the feedback and the interactivity and the questions and the stories and the contribution to it.
You're
Um,
welcome.
I hope whoever's watching gets something for themselves and know that if you have something you want to do in your life and there's fear for you, um, you now have a new level of understanding that whatever it is you want, there's a possibility of getting it. And usually on the other side of fear um, is a pretty cool, amazing feeling of like I overcame something, and you got something new for yourself, and
Absolutely.
you get the thing that you want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Win win.
win, win, win.
You just
All
got to feel a few like on the way. That's all.
right. All right. Now, how do I stop recording on this thing? Do you know how to stop
Well,
recording?
there's a button somewhere.
Where?
I don't see
I'm
it.
so scared. I don't know what buttons to push. Can I push your button?
Oh, but up on the okay. Well, on the top there's a recording thing that I see up on your desktop. There's a recording thing up there. I don't know if that's where you push or if there's because I'm not. You have a different computer than me.
Let me stop sharing. And then, oh, there it is. All right,
Okay.
everybody. We figured out how to stop recording. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. If you got any questions, feel free to reach out. Have a good day. Thanks, Angela.
You're welcome.